Welcome back to the Hoops Temple podcast. I'll be your host today, Aaron Schroeder of Possible Chairs. Joining me from New Zealand, my co-host, Dylan Williamson. How are you?
Good morning, Aaron. Doing good. We're here on an off week, absolutely treating the listeners. We're putting in overtime, under promising and over delivering.
Yes, that's such a good saying. I'm sure Nate is thrilled to have to edit another podcast. I'm sure he's just like, oh man, I really wish I didn't have to take care of my beautiful newborn kid, and I wish I was editing podcasts right now. And we're gonna give him just that. We're gonna deliver what he's been hoping for.
Yeah, I mean, the listeners are getting spoiled at the moment. You're getting the top 100 players. We've got Celtics previews. We've got Knicks preview. The Magic season preview just dropped. We've got basically a whole network at the moment with Nate being on different time than us.
Mhm. I should have been on that Magic one. I should have been on
Yeah.
there. I don't know why I wasn't invited to the Magic preview. I kind of consider
I
myself like an
know.
honorary Magic fan.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about the Knicks. The Knicks are interesting, but alas,
So today we are finishing out the top 100. That's 65 to 100. We're going to burn through that and then discuss which teams have the most or the least top 100 players and their potential future outlooks. We're going to start just hot, fresh off the presses with number 65, which is Nick Claxton. And we're doing this mostly just through my list and Dylan's list combined into an average gives us a nice, beautiful list. We can focus on the players themselves and less the ranking of them.
and
Gonna be
if we
real.
want to,
Oop, did I
oh,
disconnect?
I think I might have. It's back to
My bad.
struggling. All right, let's get it.
Where did I leave off?
um, we've got our two beautiful lists, and we're gonna use the
Mhm.
average to determine.
Yeah. What I was in the middle. What were you in the middle? Let's say.
I was just gonna say let's get to it, but if you've got more
Yeah.
preamble, then please.
No, I was talking about Nick Claxton. I was
Oh,
going. I don't know. I just gotten cut off. Number
okay.
65 is Nick Claxton. And I was saying that with the Nets, they're going to be really, really bad. They're going to be one of the worst teams in the league. But I still like some of their pieces, and Claxton is definitely one of those pieces. How do you feel about him?
Yeah, I mean, sort of fits into that tier of Miles Turner and Brook Lopez, who we talked about last week, of pretty solid, clear starting centers who make a obvious and powerful defensive impact.
A good rim protection. Good rim protection. And that kind of is why I'm going to say the Nets are not the worst team in the East. And a lot of people are kind of on that train.
Mm.
I think there's going to be I mean, they're gonna be really close to it, like a couple games away, but I do think having just a pretty good rim protector raises the floor a little bit on what that team could be.
Yeah, like at the very least, opponents are going to struggle to finish around the rim, which is um, sort of the easiest way that you can add value to your team's offense. And big part of that's going to be Nick Claxton because he does defend the rim so well. More switchable, more of a versatile defender than some of these other guys, Miles Turner or Brook Lopez, or maybe some of these bigger, more traditional fives that we might get to later in the list. Um, and then limited offensive versatility. Um, but we'll see if he's able to raise the floor of a horrendous Brooklyn team.
I do feel like Ben Simmons and Killian Hayes are gonna be good enough to elevate the Nets to like 25 wins and then just fuck off to some other team. They're gonna ruin the tank and then go somewhere else. They're gonna be like hated, just the most hated players in Brooklyn.
Yeah. Once we finish our list, we do have to go back and discuss Ben Simmons, whether he is top 10, top 8, top 15 based on the
Mhm.
recent workout videos that have come out.
Yeah, no, we need to see really kind of gauge some stuff. I know the season's coming when you start seeing those. I need to set like my fantasy basketball stuff, like draft up. I'm like, oh shit, like I need to get those going. And the way I remember is when I start seeing Ben Simmons in the lab, and now I'm like, okay, I got to start scheduling these things and making some pieces put together. But number 66 is going to be Kobe White, and kind of what a career arc for him. He was taken with
Mm.
the 7th pick in the 2019 draft. pretty good start to the career, 5th in Rookie of the Year voting, but then in 2023 saw a reduced role, and it's like, okay, like this really isn't working. And all of a sudden last season, I thought he was awesome. I thought he was really good. He averaged 19 points, close to 5 boards, and 5 assists per game. He took 7 threes a night on 38% shooting. Just a really dynamic offensive guard.
Yeah, and buck the trend. So it seems like he was solidly fitting into just becoming a strict backup point guard. And then has this big explosion in shot creation, in on ball play, in um, as you said, 3-point shooting with volume. If he can, and his second half of the season was even better than his first, so his overall season numbers actually undersell how good he was. And if he can take that second half of the season and make that a full season with high volume 3-point shooting, creating for himself and for others. He's probably going to be on a very bad team, which could hurt him a little bit. But I think that he's like a legit starting point guard with on ball shot creation.
I was at his best game last season. His career high was against the Kings. I went there with my grandma. And I will say, and I forget the number I said exactly. I'm positive that I said Kobe White's getting 35 tonight. Like I felt that the Kings can't guard guards. Like the last Kings game I had gone to, like Killian Hayes gave us 20, and like this is going to be a disaster. And he had 37 points, and we lost.
You had a LeBron Oracle moment. You're like, I'm feeling it. I told one of my I told my grandma he's getting 35 tonight.
And he did, and he did.
But Davion Mitchell isn't the Kobe White stopper.
I have such like I just feel bad about Davion because I really liked him. I really liked him. Can't guard anybody. Like, I don't know. It's like the PJ Tucker of guards, basically.
Yeah,
Like he's
yeah.
gonna guard the best offensive guard on the other team, and they're gonna give him 40. They're just gonna hand him 40 on efficient shooting. All right. Number 68 is Isaiah Hartenstein, one of the best rim protectors in the league, possibly maybe a little smaller role with his new OKC Thunder team. He played just 25 minutes a night with the Knicks last season, but I love this Thunder team, and I love Hartenstein, and he fixes. Your thoughts on Isaiah Hartenstein?
Sorry if I was frozen for a second.
Okay.
Yes, uh, make a similar to Kobe White, if not even more extreme, made a drastic turnaround in his career projections, where he was out of the league essentially. Was given a chance by the Clippers to come in and play some backup minutes, and then developed into a rim protector and showed defensive chops that he had never really hinted at early in his career. Um, and now, as you say, has become one of the best rim protectors in the NBA. A solid rebounder, which is going to help out the Thunder. Has shown in the past the hints at maybe developing a 3-point jump shot. He hasn't been hasn't been shown that in games, but maybe now is the time for that to come out, and also a really good passer as a 5, a guy that I think the Knicks are really going to miss, and yeah, providing, I mean, legitimate two-way value.
It's an interesting conversation with the Knicks for sure. Because with getting Mikal Bridges, I'm definitely like, okay, this team's getting better. But their center position's really kind of fragile. Like
Mm.
heavily relying on Mitchell Robinson scares me. And I like Robinson. I think I put him in my top 100 just off of like what he could be. Um, but they're gonna really miss him, and the Thunder are gonna really enjoy that. I think about it. I am as high on the Thunder as you can like mathematically be. Like you would be beyond reason. Like if you went any higher, like a white van pulls up to your house, they give you this nice cushy white shirt with really long sleeves that you put both your arms in.
You get
All
to watch
right.
every OKC game from the padded wall room.
Hey, my padded wall. I love my padded wall room. We
um,
have a great pick for number 69, which is the Suns' very own Bradley Beal. Up and down. Last year, we had him at 37. We
ooh,
expressed some injury concerns. He delivered on those and then some. But even more than that, I really didn't feel like the minutes he played were all that impressive. Like, I think he's still good, but you have this massive injury concern as well as, like, just kind of uninspiring play.
Yeah, I mean, it's weighing up um, very poor availability um, throughout his career and expecting to go forward, um, and then combining that with still pretty decent shot creation on reasonable efficiency, has shown that he can be part of really good offensive lineups, um, but just not a clear number one guard and incredible, you know, availability concerns.
I'm still really high on the Suns though, because of what the ceiling could be. I think they brought in point guards that can help run the offense. So if Beal dies like he has in the past 2 seasons, um, it just kind of disappears from the basketball world. They could probably run their offense just fine. Number 70 is going to be a pretty similar player, which is Tyler Hero. Very kind of similar vein of player. You have not necessarily an offensive number one, but like an offensive number two. Injury concerns. I think like no one bashes Tyler Hero for his injury issues, yet he plays about 55 games a season. But where are you tracking Tyler Hero at right now?
Um, yeah, I mean the reason no one really cares about his injury concerns is that no one really cares about Tyler Hero. Like he's just not a very important player to the overall NBA zeitgeist at this point. Like everyone knows exactly what he is. He hasn't developed anything more than what he is. Um, but like still a guy who can create some shots if he's not your primary guy. Can space the floor and be a movement shooter, which has a lot of value. And while certainly not a good defender, and in fact a bad defender, has proven that with good pieces around him, he can at least fit into a solid defense, playing that like corners in the zone defense, um, or having help behind him. He can fit into good defenses. Um, has size to at least not get picked on every single play, and then yeah, just like he can make some shots, which is still a valuable skill.
I was actually quite a bit higher on him compared to you, at least. I had him 63. You had him 83.
I think that's next line.
But I think like yeah, I like where the averages ended up for sure. Our next guy is Darius Garland. What happened to Darius Garland? Last season we had him 38th. Is that right? Yeah, 38th. And I think we kind of anticipated a move into the elite kind of offensive number ones, like this really great passing point guard that gets his own shot, is a really good shooter, and just a really disappointing season from Garland. What'd you see?
Yeah, the biggest thing with him is just that his scoring efficiency absolutely fell off. And then if you don't have that, then all of a sudden all your other flaws, being a 6'2" guard who's not a an elite playmaker, um, like those limitations start to be more important. The 3-point shooting was down. The finishing at the rim is still poor. Um, he's another guy that like you're averaging sort of 60 games, and so you're not feeling good about him from a health perspective either. But when he's on the floor, I suppose still has shown the ability to, uh, at times look like a number one lead point guard.
I thought he was great in the playoffs last season. There were times like the Cavs were badly outmatched. I forget who they played. One second. Against the Knicks, or it's like there were times where Darius Garland seemed like the only Cleveland Cavalier that could play offense, and I'm
Hmm.
just not really sure where that went. But yeah, I think you see it's a slippery slope from good offensive player, bad defensive player to like pretty good offensive player. That kind of halves your value if your flaws start to really show. Nate should be here for this one. Number 72 is Jalen Johnson. Holy shit. We should have built a statue for this one. And we had our, what was it, the most improved? I forget what was the category?
It was like breakout players or something. I don't know.
Yeah, something like that. Breakout player candidates, and Nate's like, I like Jalen Johnson from the Hawks, and I had not heard of Jalen Johnson up until now,
Yeah.
and that's not a crazy thing. Like, let me. That was not like, oh, I don't watch enough Hawks games or something. That's saying that Jalen Johnson barely played for a mediocre Hawks team the season prior. He played 15 minutes a night. He averaged 5 points a game. He broke out last year. He averaged 16 points, nearly 9 rebounds a game. He's one of the best rebounding forwards in the league. Showed some playmaking stuff. Like, do you think maybe we're underrating Jalen Johnson? Someone who's so young. Could this go into like an all-star arc?
Um, the the sort of wow, what is I'm pretty sure Nate had him as a top 100 player last year, and I was like, I don't know if I've ever seen a Jalen Johnson play NBA basketball. Like I was right there with you. Like I'm not trying to watch Atlanta Hawks games, um, um, but yeah, Nate was super high, and he was right. He saw the physical tools, um, and the player that this guy's has been able to become, where he is a, as you said, a wonderful rebounder from the forward position, a really good help defender. Probably already one of the best sort of backside help protectors, help defenders from a forward size guy. Um, has some 3-point ability. Hopefully that can continue to come along. That's really sort of the one area that he's lacking that's stopping him from being in the sort of realm of um sort of a top 50-ish type of guy. Um, and the big thing with him is like the grab and go transition playmaking, absolute terror in transition. And so if you're to actually answer your question, which was, can he become an all-star level of player? The concern that I have is just where that development is going to come. I'm not sure that the shot creation is something that he's going to be able to tap into. But in saying that, clearly doubting Jalen Johnson has not been a fruitful endeavor, and maybe he does come out and show more on ball ability this year, combining that with his already really good cutting and slashing, his really good transition play, his passable 3-point shooting, and his excellent help defense.
He got no most improved player votes. What a horseshit vote. I can't fucking stand that award. You know what's funny on top of all this? Out of all four of us, me, you, Nate, and Jack, Nate was the lowest on
I
Jalen
know.
Johnson. He had him 87th. What's going on? He was leading the charge and now he's backing down. This is his chance to deliver on this.
He was banging the drum. He's like, this guy is a top 100 player. And we were like, who is he again? What team does he play for? And now he's
Now that he's good, now that
yeah,
he's good,
no.
he's backing down. He should keep going. Jalen Johnson's a top 40 guy. Cash in again.
Well,
Spin that roulette wheel one more time.
maybe it's that he had perfectly predicted what Jalen Johnson was going to be. And then we've had to adjust, whereas he's like, no, no, no,
uh,
this is what I told you. He's the 87th best player in the NBA when you guys you know didn't even couldn't pick him out of a police lineup.
all right, number 75, RJ Barrett. Barrett was possibly the least impactful basketball player on God's earth during his Knicks days. Like, his defense was fine to bad. His offensive creation was underwhelming. Trading him to Toronto kind of opened up his offensive game. I'd say he had a pretty solid like half season. There's 32 games. He shot the ball better than he really ever had. He showed some more playmaking ability. Do you buy the RJ Barrett Raptors revolution, or are we still waiting on some other stuff?
Uh, I mean, I was the lowest one. Actually, Jack was quite low on him, but you and Nate had him as a higher ranking than what I do. It was my rating that's dragging down his average a little bit. In case anyone's mad about him being so low. Um, I wonder exactly how good he is on a good team. Whether that's like straight back to being, you know, Nick's RJ Barrett. Although the developments in his game seem pretty clear that he has become a pretty decent 3-point shooter now, which was always the thing that sort of held him back to a degree. Um, some shot creation for himself, a good passer as a forward, um, undersized as a three, which he's sort of forced into playing because the Raptors don't have a very good roster. But efficient scoring, solid defense, um, good rebounding from the position. Um, like a guy that can provide potentially a lot of value if he's your third or fourth option.
I'm really curious how this Raptors team turns out. I have them winning. I just posted my Raptors prediction. I had them at 33 wins, which is hard. It's so hard to predict a team to win 30 something games. Usually, if teams are about that good, they just blow it up and they end up going full Jazz or what the Raptors did last season, just tanking. But I think they're going to win 33 games, but the 10 seed will be available. And so I think they'll get that. Okay,
Yeah,
moving
no,
on.
that's the big incentive. The Raptors can be a playoff team with 33 games,
They can.
33 wins.
74 is Zach LaVine. He made our worst contracts draft. He was number 2 in that. Injuries have really derailed him in the last few seasons, but we've seen him be an absolute elite offensive shot creator, taking tons of threes in volume, attacks the basket really well. A couple years ago, where do you think Zach LaVine ends up? Do you think he's still a Bull by the end of the next season?
um, I do, just because I think that, well, because he was on our worst contracts, like it's really hard to trade for him. The Bulls, he is still a good player. The Bulls are gonna want him to be their go-to guy. And unless a team is willing to trade out value, the Bulls are not going to trade him away for nothing. But the contract makes it so hard that you don't actually want to give up value because taking his contract back is in itself negative value. And so I think he does end up on the Bulls where he can continue to just be this guy that totally defies logic as a pretty damn efficient shot creator that can create, take, and make difficult shots, and a guy that just has absolutely zero impact to overall team offense.
Yeah, no, basically, I made actually did a Zach LaVine Legends profile yesterday, and he was the 90th shooting guard. That's where me and Nate ended up with him. And I in the video, I basically say like it's the worst tragedy of his career that people valued him like a superstar and gave him this contract because he should have been Jamal Crawford. He should have been Lou Williams. In the best case scenario, he should have been your third guy or third or fourth guy. But now that he's paid like the first guy, he'll never. It's financially impossible to set up a team where he can be the role he should be.
Yeah, if he was getting paid Austin Reeves money, then
Hmm.
he'd be really valuable. Like if he was the Lakers starting shooting guard, they would be a better team for it. But he is kind of stuck because he's making so much freaking money that he gets to go play with the awful Bulls and you know hurt Kobe White's development.
Yeesh. The 75 is a up and coming player. It's
Hmm.
21 years of age. I wonder if that's the youngest player on the top 100. It's Jonathan Kaminga. We should check that. Youngest player in the top 100. Jonathan Kaminga is only 21, heading into year 4.
Um, Wemby and Chet were both
Steve Kerr finally trusted him. Whoops. What did you hear?
nothing. Started again. Sorry.
From from where? What's the last thing you heard?
um, you were talking about Jonathan Kaminga at 21 years old. Years
Yeah.
old.
He's just
Top
21. We
100
should
player.
figure out the youngest player in our top 100. But with Kaminga, I think we finally saw Steve Kerr trust him a little bit more. And I'm curious to see how much that develops because the Warriors are still a team that feel like they're gonna run like a 12-man rotation, where they don't really buy in fully to anybody. Where are you at with the Warriors and Kuminga's development?
Yeah, I think that, obviously by putting this guy at 75, we are both believers in him. And I think that, Golden State's reputation as a developmental team is probably um, a little bit overstated at this point because they did have that great run with Stephen Clay and Draymond and so on. But their young guys in recent times have really not developed. And this great Warriors system that did so well at maximizing the value of Stephen Clay and Draymond, I think is the very thing that's hampering Jonathan Kuminga's development. And on a different team, one that would put the ball in his hands and let him be the creator rather than having him be, play these weird lineups where he's got Draymond and Kuminga and he has to be off the ball and set screens instead of, just grabbing the ball and freaking going at the rim where he's a really elite driver and finisher. I think on another team, he would be able to show that he has a lot more value, um, because I do believe in his shot creation as a driver, the shooting maybe coming along a little bit more, the body and definitely the size to become a very good wing defender. Um, and so, yeah, 75 is a very good ranking. Probably, I imagine, higher than most people have him. And ultimately, that's because I do believe that he is a better player than what he's been able to show in the Warrior system and on a different team, on a team in a vacuum. I think that his value would be more evident.
And maybe we'll get that. Maybe the Warriors do something drastic where that move does come, because it's so interesting looking at the Warriors where their third leading scorer was Kuminga, and he played basically no minutes at all. 26 minutes a night is 7th on the Warriors last season, and obviously some of those guys are kinda coming and going with injuries. Like, he's playing less minutes than, like, Podziemski, and I like Brandon Podziemski, but even then, like, why can't they should have pushed their chips in a little bit more on some of these guys instead of trying to feed every single mouth in the building. We will move on to Jaden McDaniels, one of the best wing defenders in the league, second team all defense of the Timberwolves, modern day Scottie Pippen.
Oh,
Take it away. How do you feel about how do you feel about his offensive development? Because I think the Warriors, I think the Wolves. We talked about this for the contract tracks. We talked about Cat and his awful, bloated, very good, not good contract. It's very what's the what's that book title? In the very bad, not good day or something, in the very, very bad, not good Carlton Towns contract, and how going forward the Wolves are going to get really, really expensive. And they'll probably look to move Cat because he's like the least lined up with his contract value. McDaniels has to be a little better offensively, I think, to fit that timeline. Or did you not see that for him?
um, I think he actually probably year on year has continued to improve as a offensive player, where he's now to the point where his defense is, self-evident. That speaks for itself. He's one of the, as you said, one of the best wing defenders in the league. But I actually do think that he's to the point now where he is also, um, a borderline positive offensive contributor. The 3-point shooting is still a little bit um, low on percentage compared to where you might like it to be. What are we getting? 34% essentially on 3.5 attempts. Um, a lot of people have pointed out aspects of his game that indicate future offensive ability. Like he actually, he will bring out the odd flash. Handling the ball in transition, going through these stretches where he's making his threes at a higher volume and at a higher rate, even if it's not overall consistent on the season. And just one of the best defenders in the league, modern day Scottie Pippen.
I keep mixing him up with Jared Vanderbilt. Why I can't get that out of my head? Like it bothers me. I need to fix that. One is really good, and one is one of the worst players in the league. I have to get that across my head. All right, number 77 is gonna be Anthony Simons. I wasn't sure if the Blazers were gonna have any players in the top 100, and when I mocked mine out, I left every single Blazer off of it, and I just have their own tier because I feel like with the Blazers, they have like 4 or 5 guys you could convince me could be on the back end of this list, and that team's gonna win about 15 games, and so something's not lining up.
Yeah,
Something isn't
yeah.
matching up on that piece. Whether they're not gonna play, like Jeremy Grant hasn't played a game in in March in 5 years or something. They're like Scoot Henderson was bad last season. Rob Williams, I've seen a lot of. He's gonna play 15 games. It does feel like Simons is the best Blazer in theory, though.
Yeah, and again, another one of these guys where you kind of feel like if he was on a better team and he was like the second option on like a competent NBA playoff team, that he actually would be really valuable. Like if he was on the Lakers, like that would be immense for them. Because this is a guy who on a really bad team does create high volume and high efficiency threes, and that boosts a lot of offensive value. He has more size than you might expect from a guy of this sort of archetype. Um, to maybe play as a two, where you might expect a guy of this sort of height to be strictly a one. But I actually am I am a believer in Anthony Simons as a really positive offensive player, and I think that on a better team, um, his reputation would be a lot better. Like there's a maybe a perception that this guy's like a backup guard, but I actually do think he's a starting point guard on a good team.
Man, the Lakers should get some of these guys. We keep mentioning these players as, hey, if they were on the Lakers, they were starting on the Lakers. You probably should. They should look into that. Simons played
It's
46 games last season. Go ahead.
it's just because the Lakers are like such the perfect analog where they're like not very good, but if they had like one more piece, then they would be really good. And so it's like the perfect litmus test of like swap this guy
Hmm.
in for Austin Reeves, and do they win 10 more games? And I think
Yeah,
with Anthony Simons, they do.
I think so too. I don't think we'll be able to cash in this season. I think it's going to be much of the same in Portland. Simons was a 77, making 78. Brandon Miller. Nate had Brandon Miller at 65. Jack had 69.
Jeez.
We were a bit further back. I had 73. You had 85. Brandon Miller is awful defensively. I'm just going to throw it out there because I think it's like the big point. The Hornets were statistically the worst team in the league last season. And like so everything we're about to say is in context of that. But Miller showed a lot of flashes with his shot creating ability that was really just so intriguing. Like I love his potential. And throughout the draft, I wasn't as into it as I usually am. I ended up getting more into the draft, but with Miller, I just said that I know that archetype works in the NBA. Like if I had to pick between him or Scoot Henderson, basically, like I know this is going to translate. But then I just kept getting really excited about like Scoot Henderson, like being Russell Westbrook, that I ended up convincing myself off the opposite of that. That was a bad call. I should have stuck with my initial prediction. But I guess tell me about the Hornets and where Brandon Miller fits in that.
Yeah, I mean the archetype, as you said, that you expect him to develop into. Um, Paul George has always been brought up as the comparison by himself and by every sort of scout and analyst. And he's got the length, he's got the size, but as you said, he wasn't able to convert that into actual defensive value last year. Um, the shooting was, for the most part, inefficient. The shot creation, for the most part, unsuccessful. But this is a guy who has the physical tools and the overall skill set to be just a fairly solid two-way player. And especially if the three-point shooting continues to come along, because it, you know, did flash signs of being a real weapon. If the three-point shooting can continue to come along and develop into a real, a real go-to for him. Um, where were we at? 6.7 attempts and 37%, like perfectly
It's pretty
solid
good.
on a bad team with limited shot creation. Like all love to Ish Smith, but I don't think he's creating a lot of advantages in getting you open shots in the corner. Um, and another one of these teams where the situation um could affect. not only their development, but what they're able to show. And another one of these guys where his true value may not be evident because of the dog shit team that he's on. Um, but I think that this is the year that we see some of that defensive potential translate into value, and that 3-point shooting volume and efficiency, which is already proven to be something that he can, hang his head on, can continue to become even more of a weapon for him and for the Charlotte Hornets.
What do you think the chances of Miles Bridges being a good mentor are? What are the odds on that?
What is he
Just
mentoring him in?
awful contract, bad vibes in Charlotte for keeping Bridges around. I don't understand that. But yeah,
Yeah.
I have a lot of Brandon Miller stock. I'm really curious to see where he develops.
Did you see where Jack rated Miles Bridges in his top 100?
I did, I forget. Yeah, he said fuck you, and then you said
Yeah.
bitch.
Yeah.
It's good. It's good. I just yeah, it was I feel like the Hornets had the chance to make things right and be like, "Hey, like this is all going on. This guy's a free agent. Like he's gonna walk away. Like we could just like get out of this." And nah, they were like, "No, we're in. We want a Lamelo Ball, uh, Brandon Miller, and Miles Bridges core." Didn't
Hey man,
Miller?
that's
Yeah, because
that's that's
Miller
two
had
top
some.
100 players.
Yeah, Miller had some issues though in college, right? There
Yeah,
was
he
some
was
off the court stuff.
yeah, he was
Maybe
involved
that's
in
just
a
their
in a weird
archetype, I
incident.
guess. All right, 79 is going to be Devin Vassell. Fairly similar. Kind of, we're still a lot of like, we were talking about a lot of these guards, a lot of these kind of offensive first guards. The Spurs were awful last season, and fairly intentionally so, but I can't help but feel like they're still going to be bad, but they will be more competitive, giving Vassell a little bit more time to show his offensive skills.
And maybe that's a little bit of the summer league syndrome. The Spurs essentially were a summer league team all of last year, trying out all sorts of different things that didn't really work. And I think Devin Vassell's true primary role is as a tertiary ball handler, a guy that can give you value as a shooter, as a complementary playmaker, um, and hopefully continue to develop his defensive abilities to become like a really good, just 3-and-D guy, but not just a spot up shooter, but a 3-and-D guy who has some creation ability.
Absolutely.
Uh,
The Spurs will be a fun
6.6 threes
watch.
on 37%.
Number 80 is going to be Michael Porter Jr., another member of the worst contracts draft. Coming back
Mm.
around, last season we had him in 67. Why do you think he dropped for us?
Um, maybe we were giving him maybe too much of Jokic's shine. What this guy is, at the end of the day, is a play finisher. He's not a passer, obviously. He's got that meme like reputation for never passing the ball. He is not a fantastic one on one creator. He as a negative defender. Probably what I was thinking when I rated him last year is that I was really hopeful in that like weak side rim protection that he had flashed. Um, but that stuff hasn't really continued to develop. And so ultimately, all we've got is like a really good shooter with wing size who gives you almost nothing else. Um, Still a really solid player, still a starter on a championship team. But like is your fifth best player on that championship team.
At 6'10", his shooting is really valuable. It's hard to understate that. It's kind of like the Clay Thompson thing. It's like guys shoot as well as Clay Thompson, but are they as big as him? Like, are they as tall as him that gives him the ability to shoot those quick shots over basically anybody? So, I mean, Porter fits in so well with Jokic, but that's kind of the ceiling. I mean, he played 81 games, right? The injury concerns aren't there, and now we're just kind of realizing what he is, like what caliber player this is. I wanted to mention a stat. Harrison Barnes had less assists per game than Michael Porter Jr. did last season, and
Yeah.
also less blocks than Jalen Brunson. I don't know what the fuck he was doing out there all season. He started all 82 games. You know that less assists than Michael Porter Jr. and less blocks than Jalen Brunson. Jesus Christ.
So number 81, Harrison Barnes.
81 is Harrison, maybe 881. Number 81 is going to be Lou Dort, actually. And I'm curious, do you think Lou Dort is going to start, or do you think Caruso is going to start?
I think they'll start Dort. He has more versatile on-ball defensive ability, which is useful because like Jalen Williams and Shea are better as off the ball defenders than they are on the ball. I think it's really good to just have that guy as just your throw him on whoever guy in Lou Dort. And also they don't like Caruso throughout his career has never shown that he can play big minutes. And so I think that they will bring Caruso off the bench, which leaves Lou Dort as the starter. And he can continue to, inflict the torture chamber on various Western Conference wings and ruin their games.
Lou Dort's never made an all-defensive team. He came really close last season and a couple
Hmm.
times prior. But it is interesting because I think of him as like one of the best defenders in the league. It hasn't been able to get one of those. I think I agree with that. I think they're gonna find that both Caruso and Dort, like they'll get 28 minutes a night for them. Like they'll find a way. But I do think I could see Dort starting for just the fact that Caruso and SJ kind of play similar positions. Um, it makes sense lineup wise. Okay, 82 is gonna be Keegan Murray. Holy shit. We talk about a Sacramento King. Wait, I need to see where man, Jack doesn't wait, no. Keegan Murray. Jack doesn't have a Keegan Murray ranking. I don't need to figure that shit out. They had him 110. That's a bunch of bullshit. I don't know what that's about. Is that right? I think Nate had a bunch of 110s because he had
Yeah,
him
I,
like
th- I
that
think
far
I think
out.
just I think just non-top 100 players he put 110 at for
That's just
sort of number
insanity.
purposes. Yeah,
The Lakers are going to win about 40 games. The Kings win about 52, and I want to see Nate explain his way out of that one.
yeah.
Keegan Murray's one of the best
Explain why
shoot.
Austin Reeves is better than Keegan
Yeah,
Murray.
did he say that?
I mean, in his rankings.
Oh my god. Jesus Christ. That's why we don't have him on anymore. That's why
Yeah,
we that's why we kicked him off. Wait, let me
yeah.
find
Just to let you guys peek behind the curtain, we're actually in an ongoing feud with Nate Schwartz over
Oh my god, he Austin
his.
Reeves 88. Holy crap. My god. Alright, yeah. Ongoing feud Nathan Schwartz over that. I'll give the Keegan Murray case. He's 6'8". He was proven to be one of the better defensive wings last season. I thought he took a huge jump in that regard. And while his shooting numbers came down a little bit, I still have no doubt that he can space the floor at a high level. I mean, he set the rookie 3-point record. He still took nearly 7 a game at 36% shooting. It's very kind of Michael Porter Jr.-esque, but I think there's probably some more defensive value there.
Yeah, it's Michael Porter Jr. light, but he's also a really good defender and versatile too. Like it's not like a one of these guys where he's like 6'10" and so he can guard, big forwards that aren't too fast. Like he actually does have good lateral quickness to guard some smaller players, to chase on the perimeter, to move around screens. Like I actually do think he's a very good and versatile defender. And a potential bomber from three.
Really hoping that comes back into effect this next season. I think Kevin Herter and Harrison Barnes forgetting how to shoot the entire season really kind of put a lot of pressure on Keegan, and I'm hoping that kind of can be resolved this season. Adding DeMar DeRozan should certainly fix our spacing problems.
At least he's
Alright.
a good passer. At least like
Yeah,
Harrison
that's true.
Barnes just dribbling into the mid range and then not being able to do anything. At least Demar will like dribble into the mid range, draw help,
Yeah.
and kick out to Keegan. Isn't he like a corner shooting god? Like he's like
Yeah.
shot absurdly high in the corners.
DeMar is a really good corner three shooter, and that's basically it. And so, like, there's something there. Like Harrison Barnes took a lot of corner threes. I think that can be
I
replaced,
guess so.
kind of. But really quickly, the big thing to talk about is like Harrison Barnes got isolation possessions anyways. Like, we gave him those, and so, like, if that's just imagine instead of the worst offensive creator in basketball, it's one of the better ones, and so just swap that out, and I think you're adding offensive value. Alright, number 83, CJ McCollum. You'll have to say the positive things about CJ because I had him 93. Everyone else had him in the 70s. I can't stand I don't know why I can't stand him anymore. I think he's one of the worst defensive guards in the league, and last season, his offense started to slip in a way where he just wasn't really worth it. And the Pelicans aren't gonna be like especially for the Pelicans who bring in DeJounte Murray, who's gonna get his 15 shots a night. Now you have CJ probably on a lesser offensive role with just all of his defensive flaws showing. And he's also 33 years old. Like, I just don't see where this improves. Last season, we had him 66th.
Um, the big thing for CJ is not only yeah, okay. Negatives first, which you laid out. The biggest issue is that he's a shooting guard, but he's point guard sized, um, which makes your roster building a little bit difficult. And so, if we're comparing him to other point guards, then the playmaking, the passing is not quite so great. But compared to other shooting guards, then he's one of the best passing twos probably in the league. The big thing with CJ that he got into last year was just ridiculous 3-point shooting. Um, that is concerning from a projection perspective of if he isn't able to continue it, then his value is a lot less. But he shot 43% last year on almost 8.5 3-point attempts a game. Like his 3-point shooting is ridiculous. Like he's a better shooter than Dame at this point. Um,
Mm,
and
good point.
and so the value is that like he can still create shots for himself. He can create shots for his teammates. He's a ridiculous 3-point shooter with volume, with range, with difficulty. Um, he's gonna be probably the best six man of like what the last 5 years. When was the last time a guy coming off the bench, which um, I hope CJ does from a overall lineups perspective. When was the last time a guy this good came off the bench um, from a sort of a shot creation ability standpoint? It's been a little while, and yeah, like this, he's just a really good offensive player. He can be a starting point guard on I think a number of different really good teams.
Do you think I'm just mad at the Pelicans because they beat my Kings all the time so badly? I think I just saw
Um,
Pelicans, I'm like, like, not interested. Maybe. Really quickly, I texted Nate and I said, "You had Keegan Murray out of the top 100. What the fuck is wrong with you?" And then I sent 3 heart hand emojis, so he knew I wasn't actually mad at him. Because that seemed just harsh. The first part seemed really harsh.
Were you dropped on your fucking head, heart hand emoji?
I had to kind of that's there you go. I should say that. I should have been meaner and then just slide in the heart hand emoji so he knows I'm not that upset. All right, number 84 is Emmanuel Quickly. We have RJ Barrett and Quickly. I can't believe we ended up with RJ over Quickly. Is it my ranking that's fucking that up? Because I'll fix that. I don't think that's right.
uh, yeah, yeah. You had RJ quite a bit higher than
Oh my
quickly.
goodness, that's terrible. What if I just like
You just throw off all of our rankings.
here 84? There you go. I fixed it. Ah, man. Okay, wait. Can we fix that? Because how do you feel about that? Did you have Quickly above him? No, you
No,
didn't. No, all
no.
right. Let's just keep it.
Yeah,
Let's
Barrett's
just keep
like
it.
he provides I think more value than quickly because he has size. Like
Mhm.
he can play more positions, he can guard more positions, he can fit into more schemes because he has size.
All right. I'm into it. Quickly is still a very good two-way player. He showed defensive ability at the point guard position. Again, takes a lot of threes in volume, and I'm just really curious to see how this Raptors season is going to go. It's going to be the full-on Quickly RJ Scotty experience. Where are you at? Just give me like is this a play-in team or is this a lottery team to you?
Um, I'll have to go through and do my very scientific season projections of estimating each team's offensive and defensive rating to get a Pythagorean win expectation for each team. Um,
Mm,
which will I mean we must be going to win projections next week, so I could have next week. Um, but like off the top of my head, if you told me that the Raptors won 34 games next year, I'll be like, oh yeah, that sounds about right. If you told me they won 44 games, I'll be like, yeah, like why not?
mm.
They've got a really solid starting lineup. And so yeah, I do think there's a big range for them. Their bench maybe is utter garbage, so that might drag them down a bit. Um, but like quickly Barrett, Scotty Barnes,
Fertile.
those yeah, Jakob, big
Yeah,
Yak. Um, like yeah, they've got good players. They've got good two-way players.
I think I get that. I could see
They,
it. I could see
they could be 15th on offense and 15th on defense.
it. Perfectly balanced. All right, 85 is going to be Jalen Green, another player that I was way off of. Jack had him 78th. You had him 75th. Nathan 76th. I had him down to 98. Jalen Green is one of the worst defensive players I've ever seen. And I can't get around that. I just can't get around that. I think if you're going to heavily run your offense through him, you're not going to generate good offense, and your defense is going to be bad because you have a really bad defender out there all the time. I just really couldn't see it. His efficiency is just really bad, and he did have a stretch towards the end of the season where he was just on fire, and I respect that, but I just don't know. I just don't know where this is going to go because things have to change for him to be in that 70s range to me. He has to be a better defender or more efficient. And I guess take your pick. Which one do you think is coming?
Both. So
Yeah,
you
that's
mentioned
great.
that stretch.
Moving
You
on. All
mentioned
right. Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Let's move on. But mention quickly. You mentioned that stretch where he got really hot and he was putting up high scoring numbers. I think it was when Shingun went out.
Mm,
Um, the big thing that was impressive in that is that they won like a lot of those games. This wasn't just like, you know, volume scorer starts chucking because the team's depleted and they need creation and they lose all the games. Like his high usage resulted in more wins for them as well. And so
mhm.
that's what gives me hope that this guy is like a legitimate offensive creator with at least some size to be a better defender.
There are two pieces. One, Shengun's coming back, so he has to fit back in. The other piece is during this stretch, and it's 15 games from um, February 29th to March 29th, so a month, where he's averaging 29 a game with 6 boards and 4 assists on 48% shooting. I'm going to tell you, now they won most of these games. They went 13-2, which is great. I'm going to tell you the teams
Ooh,
they beat.
okay.
They beat Phoenix. They beat Phoenix. They beat the Spurs. They beat Portland. They beat the Kings, which the Rockets have beat us all season. They beat the Spurs again. They beat the Wizards. They beat the Cavs. They beat the Wizards again. They beat the Bulls. They beat the Jazz. They beat Portland. They beat the Thunder, which is impressive, and then the Jazz again. So out of that, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of those wins were against teams actively trying to lose games.
The Spurs might be the exception. That late in the season, I'll have to, I'm not going to go back and
You
look at
called
this
them a
for this.
summer league team. Don't lie to me. You called them
I'm
a summer
not,
league team.
and to the extent that they were trying shit throughout all the season, but they did go
Okay.
through a stretch where they were playing basically 500 level once they moved Wemby to center. And so we'll give Jalen Green half of a point for
All
beating
right. All
Wemby.
right. I'll be nice to Jalen Green. Speaking of centers, well, you mentioned Wemby was playing center. Speaking of centers, is Zubac. Ivica Zubac, one of the bigger men in the NBA. Good rim protector. I'll let you take the floor as our resident Clippers fan.
Yeah, and also as the guy whose ranking is bringing him up, I had him at 69. You had him at 104. A little bit of a difference there, and the average comes out as the 86th best NBA player in the game. Um, Ivica Zubac does all of the things that you want a traditional big man to do, He can finish around the rim. He sets very good screens. He rolls well. He is a better passer than people who don't really watch him would expect. You know, you can dump it down to him at the high post, and he can run a handoff, or he can pass to an open man coming off of a screen. He is an elite rebounder. Not just from the perspective that he grabs rebounds. These aren't Andre Drummond rebounds. These are box outs. These are keeping the opponents off of the offensive glass, which is very impactful defensively. And then he is also one of the best rim protectors in the league. Um, and so I think he's more comparable to, you know, Isaiah Hardenstein than he is to, you know, freaking, you know, Jakob Poeltl or you know, DeAndre Ayton. Um, he is a very, very solid defensive player with some offensive skill. Um, and you know, I think a clear starting center.
It's such a big difference. That is really interesting. Jack at 110, me at 104, Nate at well, hypothetically 110, and you at 69.
Mm,
I like Zubac. It is so interesting to try to gauge, like, compare. Well, Jalen Green could out got an average 30 a night, right? And go 13 and 2, like we mentioned. Like Zubac isn't gonna do that. You have to, he just kind of fits in. It's a quiet, like, hum, just a consistent drum beat. So,
yeah,
but he's gonna
and
be
that's
part of a really good lineup. The Clippers are gonna run a starting five. That's gonna be good defensively. Go ahead.
yeah, we may not actually have that much disagreement over how good Zubats is.
Hmm.
Like I think that when you made your ranking, you did appreciate the fact that he was, you know, a very good defensive center, and a very good rim protector. It may just come down to a philosophical difference over whether, um, you know, what we are saying is valuable. You know, as a
Hmm.
guy that is not very scheme versatile, who can only play 25 minutes a game, um, is that something you value? I went with yes because I think he has a huge defensive impact, but I understand why others would be like, well, there are other
Hmm.
guys that I can get more value from potentially.
All right. 87 is Dante DiVincenzo. Man, the Kings had this guy. We traded for this guy, didn't play him, and I thought, okay, here's the thing. He was bad in the minutes the Kings played. Nate Nate joined. Are you here to defend your honor?
I don't fully know what I'm here for. I just felt some FOMO. I I've missed you
You
guys. I've been gone for so
you're the
long.
same.
I've been recording with other people. Um, yeah. What is this list, my guys? Kyle
It's a
Kuzma is
great list.
100? No,
it's
no, no,
it's
no, no.
it's it's the best top 100 list in
Yeah, this
all
is
of
good.
NBA media.
Holy
Listen.
shit, Nate! Do you have Kyle Kuzma at 59?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Listen. Kyle Kuzma was asked to
No.
be the number one player on a
Oh
hot
my god, they
garbage
won
team where all
13
other
games.
support. Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
god.
Where do you have Cade Cunningham?
My
Higher.
A man
God.
is a man is
What?
not
Jesus Christ.
a man
How
is not
could
the sub. He's not limited to just his co-staff. Listen, we've seen
Oh my
Kuzma in
god.
winning scenarios play a decent role. You think Tobias Harris is going to be better than Kyle Kuzma this next year?
Yes. Yes, Kyle
Yeah.
Kuzma is a disaster defensively. Kyle Kuzma is a disaster
And
defensively. I think
offensively.
Tobias Harris is like the invisible
and
man on both ends of the court.
Jesus, you're right. Okay, invisible is better than the worst player I could possibly dream up in the worst of my nightmares. My goodness. No, the Kyle Kuzma,
Kuzma,
here's the big thing. He's addicted to this role. He's played a better role on championship teams. He's never going to want to do that again. This is what he is. He loves being in Washington. He wants to be the best player on an 80 win team over and over and over again. But the thing with like Cade is I can see Cade developing into something really special because he's like first overall pick. He's like 6'8". Can we get some more offensive
sure,
creation? Kyle
sure.
Kuzma is what he is right now. How'd you get this? I sent this.
Kyle
How'd you
Kuzma
get
was
this
the
link?
second option.
How did you join this?
I created this link.
I sent this to Dylan personally. How'd you get in here?
Oh, this is my account. What do you mean? How did I get in?
I need to make this harder to join.
Oh my god! All right, let me look through this list. You guys need to be live checked on these things. All right, Devin Vassell.
Yeah.
Hang on. But before you do that, Aaron, let's
54. Yeah.
let's just run through without comment the rest of our top 100.
Good idea. All right.
Let's close it out. We're almost there.
1 second. Where were we? Nate's like adjusting my shit. 1 second. All right. Without comment, finishing it out. Nate, if you keep adjusting the columns, I can't fucking read it.
He's sabotaging the show.
All right. Where were we? Dante Vincenzo, 87. Clay Thompson, 88. Trey Murphy, 90. KCP, 91. 92 is Tobias Harris. 93 Walker Kessler. 94 Josh Hart. 95 Malik Monk. 96 Al Horford. 97 Mitchell Robinson. 98 D'Angelo Russell. 99 Mike Conley. And number 100, good old Kyle Kuzma.
You guys have D'Angelo Russell above Kyle Kuzma? Come on, guys.
You had Austin Reeves in the 80s. I don't think you watched your own team.
Austin Reeves is a very important part to the Lakers. Their success, he doesn't have the ball stick in his hands. He actually tries to play defense. This D'Angelo Russell, you're going to get offensive creation from him, but like, at what cost?
Shout out to Austin Reeves, the fourth best player on a play-in team.
Wait, who's better?
100 player.
Wait, who's the third player better than him?
Well, it's D'Lo. It's D'Lo, right? Because we have LeBron, Davis, D'Lo, and then Reeves.
Oh my god! Did you guys leave Reeves off? Oh my god!
I know. I wasn't interested last season. I didn't think he was that good.
He's not that good. It's the connectivity piece that it helps everything out. He's like a glue guy. He's more in the lines. He's more in the lines of like a helpful Bruce Brown than he is going to be like a low tier, third option star. Which was the problem is that 2 years ago in the playoffs, everyone felt like he was like the third guy.
I actually feel like the starting shooting guards of the entire Pacific Division are somewhat similar kind of players between Austin Reeves, Terrence Mann, Brandon Pajemski. Who else is there?
Malik Monk.
Yeah, Malik Monk or
starting
Keon Ellis. These guys who can fit in on a good team. Just quickly because I've got to go. So maybe we want to convert this to a Nate and Aaron debate show.
No, interesting. Because I've around.
I've got to leave in 10 minutes. So if you guys want to continue debating,
sure.
I just want to quickly go through for the sake of interest, and maybe what it can tell us about projecting this coming season. Which teams have the most top 100 players by our flawless and irrefutably correct list?
Mm-hmm.
And so I put together this list using complicated formula, which I was very proud of, and split it out into top 20, top 50, top 75, and top 100, and just which teams have the most of these guys. And the top 20 is quite interesting because you have the Los Angeles Lakers and the Phoenix Suns as the only two teams with two top 20 players. And those are two teams that we're probably going to project towards the back end of the playoffs. And so I think that does tell. Yeah, well, maybe. And so I think that tells us something that we are maybe done with an era where just having really good low, sort of really good top two options is no longer enough to guarantee you a really good team. And in fact, the best teams are the ones that have depth of really good players. The New York Knicks, who have only one top 20 player and only 3 top 50 players, they come out with 7 top 100 players to lead all teams, followed by the Boston Celtics and the OKC Thunder, and the New Orleans Pelicans with 6, and the Minnesota Timberwolves, and the Sacramento Kings, your Sacramento Kings, with 5 top 100 players.
The
Is
Knicks
there
are gonna be so interesting because I think with the playoffs as their roster kind of crumbled with injuries, we saw all of their role guys play like 48 minutes a night basically. And so it's like, man, like I remember how great Dante DiVincenzo was, but like
Mhm.
if the injuries don't hit you and it's 20 minutes a night consistently, like do we still feel the same way?
I think there's a similar thing with that with the Pelicans, in that you're always going to be missing Zion or Ingram, and so you get to see more of the guys down the road. And it's like, how far are we away from having a Jose Alvarado 4 week stretch where he looks fantastic, and we're like, man, should we have considered Jose? And it's like, no, no, we should not consider Jose Alvarado for this. But when you have so many injuries and the bench pieces and the reserves get to play more, you get to see more of them, and as long as they play well, they start to get consideration.
Absolutely. Well, Dylan, you've done some honorable work today. We crafted a perfect list. I will defend your honor in your absence. Enjoy the rest of your
wonderful?
day. Take
All
care.
right.
Where can the people find you?
Every on random weeks on the Hoops Temple podcast. The only way to keep up is that you need to subscribe. It'll pop up in your feed. You can see all of Nate's great season, his great team outlooks, and you can see our perfect top 100 list.
Thank you, Dylan.
Right,
Thanks
I'm
for
going
joining
to
us.
mute
Take
and
care.
stop my camera because I don't know if it will upload if I leave.
Probably not. I realized that I did the chef's kiss that I did like the blunt smoking sign instead of the.
Listen, we all know
Anyways,
you're California sober.
yeah, that's right. That's right. Good to see you. We should. It's interesting. We weren't going to record this week, but then when I messaged, I mixed my weeks up, and I messaged Nate and was like, "Recording next week or tomorrow, basically." And he's like, "Well, technically no, but like we could." And I think it was the right call because we like making the top 100 takes forever, and we weren't even. We were just
It
using our
does.
averages. We were using our averages to try to focus on the players and less fighting over the rankings because I think that's like the interesting part, right? And even then it took an hour. Like it takes long. We we didn't finish it. Didn't even finish the whole thing. Didn't get to comment on anyone. Do you have anyone that we did not?
Aaron? So I think I lost Aaron. Let's see if I can text him here.
Cut out. No, it's worth.
Happens.
I was gonna ask. Do you have any comments on the people we did not get to discuss before you joined us, which would be Dante Vincenzo down to 100, or anyone outside the top 100 you'd like to make the case for?
So I, looking at my list, there are a couple of guys that are on mine that did not make yours,
Mhm.
and at least one of yours that did not make mine. And so let me see here.
Take your time.
Now I should say that my list is not fully finalized. I've kind of been working my way through it. But kind of in the back end, I've got Cam Johnson, Aaron Neesmith, Cam Thomas, PJ Washington, and um oh, I've got even more guys higher. Um, Austin Reeves, Jabari Smith. The highest guy on my list that didn't make yours, and I'm very shocked at this, is Derek Lively. What's up with not having Lively on there?
I hate his attitude. I
Well,
hate his attitude.
okay,
I think for Lively, he could establish himself like on this list. I just can't. Walker Kessler is 93rd, so I think like I don't not sure if I don't think he's
see, I'd
better
much
than
rather have
Kessler.
Lively. I'd much rather have Lively than Kessler.
Hmm.
Kessler lost this the starting spot to John Collins, basically going in a small ball five if at times for Utah. And it sounds
Hmm.
like he's already not in their plans. They're talking that they'll take a first for him. Like, I don't
Someone
know.
would be
That
very
that
fortunate
worries
to
me.
get him. I'm not sure what it is interesting because he played like the same amount of minutes season to season. This wasn't as exciting. He still is just such a good rim protector. Like he's still gonna like per 36, he's gonna block like 3.5 shots per game, over two in limited minutes.
Doesn't
Um,
doesn't matter. He's not going to play 36, and the minutes he is going to play
yeah.
is going to come against backups. That's because he's just it's weird because his rookie year he started off weak, played very strong at the end, and then the second year he ended up playing about the same minutes. You said, which means like it kind of averaged out, and we didn't get the strength, we didn't get the weakness. Um, Lively, I thought came on very strong, and he's going to be in the same role, just catching lobs, getting in the middle of the floor where he can either finish or make the quick pass, which I felt like he does very well. I would expect him to. I would expect him to be the third most important Mav this next season, above Klay Thompson.
Wow, that's interesting. And I guess I see the direction. I mean, I roster him in our in our dynasty league. So I mean, clearly there's
Yeah.
there's something going on. I'm just not sure if I'm ready yet. I think he was kind of a little bit of like a novelty in the playoffs where like he's playing like 20-ish minutes a night. Like he's getting out there, but like I just don't see him as like a high impact guy. I think he's just more of a part of the many pieces and lineups the Mavs are running in the playoffs. Luka makes people look good. I think there's that, and like we've always valued like people that can um play,
Look good in their role.
yeah, look good in their role. So I
Yeah.
understand it, and like and we've talked about how difficult this is towards the back end of the list, where it's like what and in 2K it's different between a 75 and a 76 overall. Like it's all so close.
Hmm.
I'm not sure if I had Lively.
Neither of you
Not
had
sure.
Lively.
Yeah, I guess I'm curious what Dylan has to say about that. Um, Like I had Tobias Harris 81st and Jack out of 151st. I don't know. I like it's not that I think Tobias Harris gets hate because his contract sucks and his team is contending. And so it's like a lot of Philly pressure. But I think he's just gonna be like pretty good in Detroit.
See, I think you're going to be asking Tobias Harris to do exactly what Kyle Kuzma's done in
Hmm.
being the best player on a bad team. And like some guys love that. Some guys live for it because they just want to put up shots.
Hmm.
I
Kyle
was
Kuzma does.
I, I was clipping up our Gerald Wallace versus Al Jefferson debate from
Hmm.
our top 400, and I was looking for Gerald Wallace pictures to put on the TikTok reel, and there's a lot of him and Steven Jackson in
Hmm.
together, and it got me thinking about Steven Jackson, who always is like, I could be so good. And I'm like, "No, Jackson, you were on garbage teams this whole time. Like, what do you mean you could be
Yeah.
so good? You did nothing with bad teams." But like it does take talent to be the best guy. There are a lot of other guys on this list whom couldn't give you 20 on a garbage team. They're the good role players that will fit in nicely.
Hmm.
But like if you did the vacuum test, Josh Hart plus four randos versus Kuzma and four randos, like the Kuzma and four randos team is gonna be better.
I get that. I think maybe we get carried away with like the hierarchy of things instead of just how they are. Like maybe there's no team that Josh Hart's going to be the best player on. What he's going to
Yeah,
be is the fourth or fifth guy, sixth guy on a really great
seventh
team.
guy.
The seventh guy, he's going to be the 15th guy on a championship team, and that's really valuable. He's going to play that role excellently, and maybe that's what I'm looking for at this point over Kuzma, who could be the fifth guy, could be the fourth guy, maybe isn't paid like it, it's not gonna happen. Like the situation in which I would get more value from Kuzma doesn't exist anymore.
See, I try to think of it a little bit more as a vacuum of just like, hey, if we take contracts out of it, and we just take contracts, take a little bit of situations out of it, um, and not fully, because my argument for Lively is the exact opposite. It's in his role, he's going to look so fantastic being set up by Luca time in, time out. Um, that Lively is going to be higher. Kuzma is the guy that has to do all the setup with absolutely nothing around him. Let me see who are some of the other big differences that we have in the list.
Yeah, go
While
ahead.
still
I
not.
took my list out in another page you can sort away. Actually, I
Okay.
want to comment on Jabari Smith. I love Jabari Smith, and I'm surprised that other people, because I think you and someone else had him in the top 100, are ready for him now. Because I still feel like it's really raw. I don't really see him impacting the game on either ends to a degree where I'm interested. But I've seen him live. I've watched the Rockets games, and the Rockets whip the Kings' ass every time. Where he's so tall and has such good shot
Hmm.
creation abilities and flashes. Like if you could buy Jabari Smith stock, like I would. I still think he's really good. But I think we're, especially given the Rockets are kind of in flux, like it's a weird here and now roster, now and then roster, whereas you have veterans on expensive deals and young players coming up. I'm not sure I'm gonna see this next season.
I feel that, and I kind of debated with where I was placing Şengün. I think right now I've got Şengün a little bit high. I'm probably going to work him back. Where did you guys end up with Şengün?
Around 50-ish.
Yeah, I think I went in 40-ish or like 46-ish. And it's just you don't know who's going to really pop from this group. So I was kind of trying to
Mhm.
hedge my bets where I think Şengün, we've seen what he can be as far as an offensive hub facilitator or creator from the middle. If they do pivot away from him and they want to go with more of the guard heavy play, more of a 5 out, more versatile, then I think Jabari Smith is playing up, playing more four, playing more five is the right way to go. And I really like what he can do defensively, and I like his
Mhm.
aggression offensively. So maybe it is a season too early, but I'm kind of ready to be a season too early on some of these guys than a season too late.
I respect that. I just I can't stand the Rockets. I can't like I think people project them to take a bit of a leap. I think they're gonna be about as good as they were last season. It's really interesting. They have 10 guys they can mix and match in any direction and produce the most
Hmm.
painfully mediocre basketball known to man. They are gonna go 500 with under what lineup they go out there with. And I think people see that and they mistake that for depth when it's just like the lack of top end talent, essentially.
Yeah, it's
They're
kind of like having an unlimited amount of Skittles, and you're like, oh my God, this is so great. And then you're like, you know what? I'd rather have like 20 candies before Skittles. Like it's great having a crap ton of Skittles, but like, man, give me
Like,
like Sour Patch Kids. Give me, you know, uh Reese's peanut butter. Like there's so many things better that I'm drawing blanks
yeah.
on. I don't know why that was my
I'll
analogy,
give
but
you I'll perfect this analogy. When I was a kid, my parents got me occasionally like the 1 pound candy bar. And it's
hmm
like, whoa, it's the biggest candy bar in the world. And then after like a little bit of eating that candy bar, you're like, it's a lot of candy bar. It's a lot of like the same candy bar. I'm not really sure I want to finish this right now. And then that kind of feels like the Houston season. Like they're going to be fine. They're going to be good, but their bench is equally as good as their starting group. And that's not necessarily a compliment.
yeah. All right. So looking through this, I started to talk about Vassell, who I have right now roughly slotted at 54. You guys have all the way back at 79. Is this just a lack of faith in Devin Vassell's ability to be that secondary player next to Victor Wembanyama?
It's because in our Dynasty Basketball League, I auto drafted Chris Middleton when I was looking for Devin Vassell's name, and you got him instead.
I knew it. I knew it. I think Devin Vassell. I think bringing in Chris Paul is going to be very helpful to not just Victor, but also Vassell, because they tried to go without a point guard for lots of last season. You didn't have anyone setting up anyone. And Vassell, he's fine with the ball, but like he kind of needs to drive or he needs to shoot. He's not as good of a playmaker. think having someone to kind of set the plays and run the offense, just get things initiated, is really going to benefit and boost him. And having someone that will find him in the corner for open shots just is going to be really helpful. Also, the defense with him on the floor, once they kind of figured out Victor should be the center, got much better because he's a good defender, but when there was kind of some funky other rotations, no one in the Spurs looked good defensively last year.
Mhm. It is so strange because the Spurs are one of the smarter franchises ever, and yet they opened up the season with two of the dumbest ideas like you possibly could have thought of. You could ask some like random dude on the street, like, "Hey, do you think Victor Wembanyama should play the 4 next to Zach Collins?" And they'd tell you no. They're like, "Hey, do you think Jeremy Sohan should run point to start the season?" And they'd tell you no. And why did it take one of the smartest franchises in the league half a season to figure that out?
I have a theory, and that's they always knew it. They just wanted to end strong, and so they're like, how do we start off really weak? Because we're not making the playoffs. We want to get another good pick. Like, kind of a little
Mm,
bit of self-sabotage, but also a little bit of like, all right, how do we try to make these guys grow? Well, we're going to force Sohan to do something that he's not good at doing time and time again to try to make him better at it. Like, it's a little bit like the process in Philly. Hey, we know this isn't going to work, but in not
mhm.
working, we're hoping to have future successes.
Okay. A little bit of self-sabotage, I get that. I still feel like Vassell is held back a bit by he's not gonna play in a game that matters still. I mean, I have the Spurs at 26 wins, and that's what we're looking at. Like, we're gonna be in that range. If you think it's 33, that's fine, but it's still the same result
Mm,
where
the West is just still
Vassell isn't
so
gonna,
brutal.
it's
I
gonna
mean,
be tough.
what?
Hey, we have to make our next week is predictions. I'll say this on recording because what does matter at this point. Next week is prediction. Make our Excel spreadsheet. We can put in our averages and stuff.
All right, I'll get that
When I
ready.
say we, I specifically mean you. You need to make your Excel spreadsheet.
I've started working on it. I've been talking. I've been meeting with people. Actually, I'll probably drop it before this pod comes out. But if you're listening to this one first, go back, check out the Hawks pod beforehand because I don't know why. I've been talked into being higher on the Hawks than I think.
Wow,
Uh,
interesting.
David Lee, D Lee
Mm,
4-3. Really great analysis. You know, I don't know if I said it on air, but I've complained to you a lot about how people talk about the eye test, and usually when they
mhm,
talk about the eye test, it's hot garbage.
mhm,
It's Kyrie's really great because he's got these handles, and I'm an eye test guy. I don't care what the numbers say. And you're
mhm.
like, yeah, those are just highlights. David Lee is not an eye test guy. Or sorry, he's the right type of eye test guy. He is this guy doesn't get low enough going around screens. This guy's hip mobility stays too straight. It's so he's not sliding properly in place. That is the eye test that
Mhm.
really matters. And he had some really great points about the Hawks. So but I'll let
I'll
that
have to
be
listen.
a post trailer teaser for it.
Yeah, go check that out. Nate's been doing some really interesting and thought-provoking team previews with some special guests. Please check that out. But our time today is up. Nate, thanks for joining us. Feel free to crash the party whenever. I think you should try just to hop in at random points more often. Maybe just join in for our standings prediction.
It helps if
We're
you
always welcome.
text me when they're going on.
What do you mean?
I mean, if you tell me you guys are recording, I
I
can
could,
join,
right? Yeah, all right.
right?
Yeah, that's a good point, that's a reasonable take. All right. Well, where can the people find you?
Nate underscore Hoops Temple on TikTok. Also, you can email me and the whole show, hoopstemple@gmail.com. Aaron, where can the people find you?
Possible Chairs on TikTok, Possible Chairs on Twitter, my Cameo, or you can pay me to say anything. If I said mean things about your favorite player, $10 says that Paolo Banchero is actually the next rising star. He's a top 20 player in the league. I'll say that for a small fee. Also, my Patreon, which I'm not sure if I already said, where you can find all these great lists and more. In the Hoops Zone podcast at random intervals and unbeknownst to date. It's like a secret code. Me and Dylan text each other like, all right, every third week and then every second week. And Nate will never crack. He'll figure it out.
To be fair, you and I had planned to do our top four to 450, and I
Mhm.
had to text you last night. I was like, I have not finished that list. I had plenty of time to record. I just didn't have time to finish the list. So uh, that's why we're here. But on the bright
Now that I
side,
think about it, I don't think I did either. That'd been interesting if we actually got in here. It's neither of
hey,
us have a list mate.
on the bright side, I have done some plumbing in my house. I have installed a garbage disposal. Adulting. That's
Very
how life
nice.
goes.
We are all proud of you. All right. Catch you guys.
All
Thank you.
right.